Have you ever looked back on your life and realized that the things that once served as your goals have now become burdens? The house you poured your heart into the building now feels too spacious with the children gone. The new car you bought no longer gives you the sense of well-earned reward. The roles you once fulfilled wholeheartedly, father, husband, successful man, seem no longer sufficient to define who you are. Carl Jung once warned, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Many people in their 50s and 60s feel adrift, as though they've never truly lived. Not because they lived wrongly, but because they never truly lived for themselves. They lived to be liked, lived to do the right thing, lived to meet expectations, but not to become who they truly are. Do you feel this is happening to you? In the journey of returning to the deep self, which Jung called individuation, there will come a time when you are compelled to lay down all that no longer belongs to you. The titles, the expectations, the embellishments, and begin again to learn how to live truthfully and meaningfully. No one teaches us this, and most of us know it too late. Today I want to walk with you through 6 doors, 6 seemingly small lessons, yet they may be the very first steps to reclaiming your vitality for the rest of your life. Not to fulfill a role, but to live as yourself fully. If you see yourself in these lines, remember to subscribe so you won't miss any deep reflections on living true to yourself. And now let us step into 6 compact lessons that may transform how you live the rest of your life. The first lesson is to stop pretending. How many times have you walked into a room smiling, nodding, making conversation, while deep down all you wanted was to turn around and leave? How many times have you said, "I'm fine," while inside there was only a silent, wordless void? We have grown far too accustomed to pretending to be strong, pretending to be cheerful, pretending that we are settled, successful, and fulfilling our roles. Over time, this becomes a habit, to the point that we sometimes can no longer distinguish between what is real and what is a facade. Carl Jung once wrote, "We all wear masks, but the tragedy is when we forget who is underneath." Many people begin to feel weary in the second half of life, not because their physical strength is fading, but because their spirit has carried too many invisible burdens. A nameless fatigue appears when we are alone, and the world's noise dies down. And in that sudden quiet, we realize how many years we've lived for others, yet perhaps not a single day for ourselves. Youth teaches us how to conquer. Society teaches us how to impress, and family teaches us how to sacrifice. But no one teaches us how to be honest with ourselves, and so we drift. We live according to the image others expect, sometimes very well, very properly, but each day we grow more distant from our true self. The external self becomes increasingly polished, while the inner self turns dry and barren. What will happen when you stop pretending? You may lose a few relationships, you may confuse others, even make them uncomfortable. You may feel empty for a time, because the old self is collapsing. But then, like dead skin being shed, you will feel your actual skin breathing. You will begin to laugh only when you truly feel joy. You will fall silent when you have nothing left to prove, and you will say no without feeling guilty. Not everyone will love the honest version of you, but that no longer matters. What matters is this: you no longer have to abandon yourself to stay with others. That is freedom. That is the true maturity that comes from sincerity. You don't need another performance. You no longer have time to live out someone else's script. This is the moment to continue your life differently, beginning with a simple yet liberating whisper: "I won't pretend anymore." 2. Don't chase after others. There is a trap that is subtle, persistent, and deeply dangerous. It doesn't explode. It doesn't threaten with words, but it can silently throw your entire life off course, drain your finances, and more importantly, cause you to lose yourself. That trap is called keeping up with others. Have you ever felt this way? The neighbor buys a new car. You look at yours, still reliable and running smoothly, but suddenly it feels old. An acquaintance moves into a more expensive neighborhood. You feel a twinge of falling behind. Your friends' children attend better schools, study abroad, and have bright futures. You look at your child, and though you love them deeply, A vague sense of anxiety and comparison lingers. You know what? That's not a genuine desire. It's merely an urge fed by the gaze of others. Carl Jung once said, "We often believe we have personal desires when in fact they are merely collective projections." This is especially true in middle age, when you've become financially secure and made it, and then start being pulled by a subtle form of desire, the need to prove. Not just to be enough, but to be more. More than old friends, more than peers your age, more than who you were 5 years ago. But do you know what the greatest danger is? A life lived to prove something is a life that never stops. Because there will always be someone with more. There will always be a nicer house, a farther trip, a newer accomplishment. The more you chase, the further you drift from real happiness. This act of chasing others is why many people can't retire when they should. They have good incomes and healthy savings but consistently overspend, caught up in the image they believe they must maintain. The cost isn't just financial, it's the loss of inner peace. You work hard not to enjoy life, but to maintain an image. And sometimes that image is no longer even you. So how do you break free? First, be honest. The thing you want to buy, the goal you're striving for, is it truly your desire? Or is it just something you think you should have because others do? Then, revisit your real values. You may not have the most beautiful house, but you have a warm, loving home. You may not drive the fanciest car, but you have the health to take your loved ones out for a drive each afternoon. You may not be the wealthiest person, but you have time to listen, slow down, and be genuinely present. When you stop keeping up with the neighbors, something strange happens. You begin to return to your rhythm of life. You spend less but feel more abundant. You shop less but savor more. You slow down, and miraculously you find yourself living more authentically. At this age, you no longer need others' admiration. You need your peace, and that never comes from racing ahead, but only when you dare to stop. 3. Material things do not bring joy. There comes a stage in life when you believe that joy lies in tangible things. A brand new car, a bigger house, a genuine luxury watch, and a rising stock portfolio. You work hard, very hard. You pour your energy, time, and sometimes youth into accumulating each item, and you achieve a lot. But then, at a certain age, you suddenly realize, each time you unbox a new delivery on your porch, your heart no longer leaps as it used to. No item, whether neatly packaged in cardboard or beautifully marketed, brings you as much happiness as an afternoon watching the waves with your loved ones. And perhaps you felt that too. A simple meal shared with someone you love can warm your heart more than the grandest banquet. A slow morning walk with your life partner can sometimes make you feel more alive than 8 hours in an air-conditioned office. Carl Jung did not speak much about material possessions, but he held one clear principle. The external is merely a shell. If it is real, happiness must come from the relationship between one person and another, and between a person and their soul. In the remainder of life, you begin to want not to own more, but to keep less, yet more deeply. And perhaps that is the most significant transformation of middle age. Happiness no longer lies in collecting what's new, but reconnecting with what's true. You too. You may have felt numb in front of new things, may have stood in the middle of a shopping mall and asked yourself, what do I need here? If so, perhaps you are ready for a turning point. Not a turn toward austere renunciation, but a return to what is real, deep, and abundantly within. When you reflect on your life one late autumn afternoon, you won't remember how many things you bought, but who sat beside you, who laughed with you, and how many moments you truly lived that touched your heart. 4. Taking care of your health. Carl Jung once said, "You may gain the whole world, but if you lose your soul, you have nothing." When entering the second half of life, you must reconsider not how to succeed, but how to preserve yourself. Many people pass through most of life's journey without genuinely caring for themselves. They invest in finances, reputation, and raising children, yet continuously postpone the most essential thing, physical and mental health. Not because they don't care, but because for so many years they believed just a bit more effort. Rest can wait for another time. Jung would view this not merely as a behavior, but as a manifestation of the collective unconscious. Society teaches us that a person's worth lies in productivity, contribution, and being tireless. But he also warned that if the ego only looks outward without turning inward, it will deplete. Depletion is the wordless state in which many people live in the second half of life. You don't need to fall ill to realize you've been neglecting your body. You need to be observant enough to notice. A night's sleep no longer feels deep like before. A stiff neck and shoulders you assume came from your pillow, but have lasted for weeks. A weariness in your mood with no apparent reason. And the truth is, you can't remember the last time you felt fresh. To Jung, the body is the living symbol of the unconscious. When we ignore basic needs, rest, movement, nourishment, contact with nature, the body speaks. At first it sends vague signals. Later it sends definite blows, pain, disorders, breakdowns. And not just the body, your soul also needs to be touched. Jung believed that each person has a sacred center, a hidden place within us that still knows how to dream, move, and connect with something more sacred than material life. But that center will wither if it is buried beneath to-do lists, phone notifications, stress, and unspoken loneliness day after day. As Jung explained, mental health does not lie in politicizing everything, but in the courage to face one's inner shadow. You may be healthy not because everything is perfect, but because you are brave enough to ask yourself each day, what am I truly feeling? Have I given my soul enough time to breathe? Am I living in alignment with what I truly need, or merely existing? Jung did not promote a clean and quiet life in some idealized sense, but instead encouraged a life that is honest and conscious, where you dare to adjust your rhythm to be in harmony with your true self. Begin before you lose the ability to listen. 5. Learning to spend. Life has a quiet paradox. When we are young, we work ourselves to the bone to save money. But once we've become stable, we no longer dare to spend. Not because we don't have enough, but because we've lived too long in the mindset that we must save for later. We must prepare for the what-ifs. Yet after countless what-ifs that never happened, we still can't find peace of mind. The habit of living to hold back has sunk so deeply into our subconscious that when we finally reach the age of rest, we no longer know how to live fully. Carl Jung would not call this a financial issue. He would call it a problem of the constrained ego, a self that was never taught how to receive joy without guilt. You once believed you were sacrificing one chapter of your life for a brighter next chapter. But if there is never a moment when you learn how to enjoy, then that next chapter will also pass by in calculations, restraint, and fear. Jung once said, "We do not become rich by saving much, but by giving at the right time." And giving here is giving to others and yourself. A good meal for no special occasion, a trip simply because it's your heart's desire, a small gift for the soul, without a valid reason. Many people have mastered saving over 30 or 40 years, but have never learned the skill of enjoyment. And sadly, that too is a skill. It must be practiced. It takes time to grow familiar with the feeling, I deserve to live gently, without having to brace myself constantly. You have sacrificed enough. You've lived long enough for others, for expectations, for someday. Now ask yourself, is the money you've saved helping you live more deeply? Or is it just sitting still, like a guarantee for days that may never come? Jung reminds us, if we cannot reconcile with our instinct to enjoy, that shadow will rise in distorted forms. Compulsive shopping, spending to fill a void, or, on the other hand, living in mechanical austerity and mistaking it for virtue. To enjoy is to know how to live and use what we've accumulated to create connection, experience, memory, and warmth. It is to use money to live, not just to survive. It is to allow ourselves joy, not just security. It is to spend meaningfully, not merely reasonably. And if you've never lived this way before, that's okay. Because Jung always believed each stage of life carries a different task, and being late does not mean failing as long as you begin. So try beginning now. It's a small amount for a great experience. It's an evening where you check your feelings, not the price tag. It's a life no longer bound by the fear of lack, but guided by the sense of enough. You've spent a lifetime saving for peace. Don't let your hesitation shorten the remaining years. You deserve to live fully, not because you've done enough. 6. The time that remains. Among the three most significant assets in life, money, health, and time, the one most easily taken for granted is also the one that can never be reclaimed. Time. You can lose money and earn it back. If cared for in time, health can still be improved. But time, once it has passed, no one, no matter how intelligent or wealthy, can buy back even a single day. Carl Jung did not view time merely as a linear flow. He believed that time has depth and that how you become conscious of it determines the quality of your life. In the first half of life, we spend time as though it were infinite. We sacrifice the present in exchange for the future. We postpone joy, dreams, and ourselves. I'll do that when the children are grown. I'll begin when I retire. I'll live true to myself. Someday. But one morning you look back, and someday has quietly slipped away long ago. Jung believed that in the second half of life, our task is no longer to conquer the outer world, but to return inward to be reconciled with ourselves. At that point, time is no longer for trying harder, but for awakening. Awakening to see what truly matters. Awakening to stop wasting energy on things no longer worthy. Awakening to let go, not because you are weak, but because you are enough. You cannot control how many years or months you have left, but you can decide how you will live each remaining day. And that makes all the difference. You can choose to use your time to worry or be grateful, delay or begin, please others, or listen to the authentic voice. Someone who has lived in haste will need time to relearn how to live slowly. Someone who has lived for others will need the courage to live for themselves. And someone who has chased the clocks ticking will need to learn how to live by the rhythm of their own heart. Jung reminds us, life begins when you dare to face yourself, no longer as a role, but as your true being. And that can only happen when you understand. Each remaining day is a gift, not to be used up, but to be lived intensely. So from today onward, choose to optimize your time not by getting more done. At this age, you no longer need more time to prepare for living. You need the courage to live while time remains. Not perfectly, not to impress anyone. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Don't let unconscious habits sweep away the rest of your life. Be awake, be deliberate, live. Do not extend your time, but be more whole every minute you are still present here. If you are in the second half of life, then please pause for a moment, not to look back regretfully, but to listen to a message from the deepest part of you, the part that perhaps has been silent for far too long. Carl Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." If these 6 lessons have stirred something within you, a feeling yet unnamed, a quiet yearning, a question without an answer, please don't rush to brush it aside. Perhaps it is the signal of the most important chapter just beginning, the chapter where you live for yourself.